Davinsky train. Oh, we're one away from 1300. Nice. Very nice. All right, here we go. So these are the roster upgrades for the roster update coming out on July 9th. We're going to start with hitters. We've got a lot. I'm not going to count them. There's a lot. Let me pull up the old notes. And we got lots to go over today. So settle in, y'all. It's going to be great, I think. Let me review first some folks that have been, and this is not the extent of it. This is just a quick sampling of guys that I could think of off the top of my head that have been in previous updates that still deserve an upgrade, and that includes Mike Trout. I know he's a 99, but he should be an even better 99, kind of like Clayton Kershaw. Jose Altuve, I've been beating the drum for him to get to 99 for a couple weeks now. Matt Carpenter, Chris Bryant, Edwin Encarnacion, Adam Jones, Freddie Freeman, Brian Dozier, Jonathan Scope, and Kendrys Morales. All of them have been featured in a recent episode. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just click the previous videos. If you're watching it live on Twitch, you can go to youtube.com/PJS24 and kind of go through previous videos. You don't have to go too far back. I'd say over the last 2 weeks. So each of the last 2 videos from hitters or pitchers, you can kind of go through and find some of these guys and kind of see the upgrades that I gave them. I still feel strongly about upgrades for all of those guys in addition to the guys that we have coming up for this week. Now, Giancarlo Stanton is going to be one that you guys are going to wonder, well, where's Giancarlo Stanton? He didn't make it because as I mentioned before we kind of kicked this off here, for those of you watching on YouTube, he didn't really get, I mean, he's been all right for a while, right? He's kind of been coming up, but the real explosion, the 4 homers in these last 2 days, that's not going to be factored in. It kind of happened too late for this update. So you better believe he's going to be on the upgrade chart next week. Maybe they get to him, but based on what I know of kind of when the updates turned in, I don't know that he's necessarily going to be on this week's. Because if you look, here's the thing for Giancarlo Stanton. He was downgraded on 6/24. And since then, but before Tuesday, he only had a 231 average, 318 on base, and 410 slug. That's not even very good. But then 4 homers and 4 at-bats over the last 2 days, that's a lot different. So that's going to come up next week. All right, let's get started here with the guys that are getting upgrades. And we'll start with Joey Votto, speaking of guys who have had downgrades recently. He got downgraded. He started the season as a diamond and got off to a really ugly start. It was not good for Joey Votto, and he finally got downgraded on May 20th, and since then he's hit 301, 428, 8 homers, 5 stolen bases. That's pretty amazing. So honestly, I think he just needs to go back to the diamond that he was. Nothing too crazy, just back to where he was. Back to 90, back to 87, back to 86 here, and back to 75 here. And his vision, back up to 59, and then discipline back up to 99. Just back to where he was. No need not to. So that gets him back up to 94. The numbers are there. It's just kind of a matter of time. And honestly, I think that they didn't downgrade him until May 20th. They tried to hold off. They didn't want to bump him down, I'm sure, because when you got a guy who's this good, who has this kind of track record, you want to wait as long as you can. That's why they took forever on Stanton, because they wanted to give him a chance to kind of get back to his level, because he's that kind of player. And of course, now he's headed back toward his level. But for a while, they were just kind of letting it go. They downgrade him, and now he's popped back up. So I got Votto back at a diamond. Next up, I don't know if he's going to get diamond yet, because the center field requirements are so difficult. But Yoenis Cespedes is absolutely obliterating lefties that he might have enough in the tank to get it done. I've got a pretty sharp upgrade here, up to 72 against lefties and up to 87 against lefties here for the power. I think that might, I don't know, let's see if it's enough. It might not be enough. That's a good upgrade. It should get him into the 90s, but I don't know if it gets him all the way up to a 93. Yeah, just a +1 up to 90 right now But he's been great, and as you may have heard multiple times, whether it's MLB The Show tips or just in other people's streams, I know Carl Dude has mentioned it. If you put him at left field or right field, he is a diamond. So it's really the fact that he's at center field, and he's a great example of why overalls don't necessarily matter in terms of how they play. I understand that they do matter for the market, but in terms of how they play, for all intents and purposes, Yoenis Cespedes has been a diamond for pretty much the entire year. By the way, for those of you in the Twitch chat, I'm not getting to you. You know how it goes during the upgrades. All right, next up is, this one's kind of an interesting one. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. They're all interesting and awesome because I'm amazing at this. No, I'm just kidding. Francisco Lindor, I talked about upgrading his hitting previously. This one's actually focused on his defense because his hitting is actually kind of tapered off a little bit, so maybe they don't give him an upgrade. I just need his defense upgraded right now. If they upgrade his hitting, that's fine. It certainly could be, but really the defense is something that I think we should see upgraded. I think the fielding needs to go up to 90. The arm accuracy, I don't really know what decides that, but I don't see him make errant throws. The arm strength, I think, should be an 8. I got both of these at 80. And then his reaction can stay the same. He's at 83, which is the 6th best. Brandon Crawford's at 84. Andrelton Simmons is at 87. So I've got no problem with where that is. But I think everything else around it needs to be upgraded. So just a defensive upgrade for him right now. We'll see if they can get the offensive upgraded. But in terms of like the last couple weeks, it's not like Lindor is tearing the cover off the ball. And that bumps him up 2 points to an 89 for Lindor, just on defense alone. So that's pretty impressive. Next up is Nelson Cruz. Whoops, that's Felix Hernandez. Now, this is similar to what we're talking about with Yoenis Cespedes, where it's some lefty domination, and that's all we're going to be really focused on right now. He was downgraded on May 20th. Since then, he's got a 284, 352, 574 triple slash with 13 home runs, and a lot of that damage has come against lefties, and so I think he needs to get severely upgraded. Well, I say severely, it's not like I'm going 99, 99, but when you're talking, once you're above 85, every little point is pretty big. So I'm going to go 93, 95 here. If you look at what he did last year, he had 14 home runs against lefties and 191 plate appearances. This year, that was against lefties only. This year, he already has 12 in 114 plate appearances with a 320 average, 395 on base, and a 740 slug. That's insane. I can't see any way that he's not in the 90s for both categories against lefties. He's been absolutely amazing against them, and that bumps him up a point to 88. Next up, a guy, we're talking a lot about guys who were recently, or this year, downgraded that are working themselves back into shape, including Troy Tulowitzki. Now, this whole team has been great. I mentioned earlier that Edwin Encarnacion is somebody who is still on the upgrade list for sure. Josh Donaldson, I believe he did get his upgrade last week. Might even have another one coming. He's been so good. But let's focus on Troy Tulowitzki right now. Obviously, there was a lot of attention on Troy Tulowitzki last week, but it was for a different reason, because a couple throwbacks came out, or flashbacks, I should say, and those cards are both awesome. Obviously, that prime one is amazing. But let's focus right now on his live series card. He was downgraded on June 3rd. Since then, he's got a 339 average, 403 on base, and 729 slugging with 7 homers, a 12% strikeout rate, and a 10% walk rate. That's elite, right? That's a full month of elite Troy Tulowitzki. And actually, not really. I shouldn't say that. It's a full month in terms of when he was downgraded, but he's only played since June 18th because he was on the disabled list. He's crushing righties and lefties equally. And all I'm doing for him right now is I'm putting him back to his first downgrade. I can't quite get him back to where he was to start the season because, like I said, it's only been like 3 weeks worth of action here. But let's jump back up to where he was prior to that, since that last downgrade. So that's 68 over here. Back to 95 against lefties. He's absolutely murdering lefties right now. I kept the power 71 because that's where it was, and then 78 there. So this just gets him back to where he was last downgraded from. So he still has room to grow, but he's back up to an 89. That's a 3-point gain for Troy Tulowitzki. Next up, let's head out to Colorado, talk about Charlie Blackmon. He's a guy who hasn't been touched all year, but has been having a really nice season kind of quietly out there. You know, I think even superstar players like Cargo and Nolan Arenado end up kind of being under the radar in Colorado, which I guess I get because it is Colorado, but they're really good. By the way, as I say that, they show a highlight of Nolan Arenado going to the warning track in San Francisco. Not quite. But let's focus on Charlie Blackmon here. Now, he's made some big gains against lefties, I think, this year, including 73 over there and nice little upgrade against lefties in his power. Nothing crazy, but those are nice little gains. This is now a guy, 73-53, that you can use against left-handers, even though he's a left-hander himself. He's hitting 288, 363, 425 with 3 homers and an 11% strikeout rate in 91 plate appearances against lefties this year. Consider that he had 3 home runs in 180 plate appearances against lefties last year. So he's basically doubled his home run rate thus far against lefties. So that's pretty impressive, but it is only 91 plate appearances, and he does have a career of kind of being blah against lefties. So I couldn't go crazy with it, but he deserves an upgrade for sure. The real upgrade comes against righties in terms of the impact. I think he gets 5 points to 88 and 10 points up to 64 here. Check this out. His line against righties: 313 average, 377 on base, and a 530 slug. Those are all career bests. He has 9 homers and 220 plate appearances. Last year he had 14 in 502 plate appearances. So he's pacing to really crush righties this year, pacing for about, almost 20 homers against righties if he gets another 500-something plate appearances against them. I think his vision needs to go up just a couple ticks, and his discipline needs to go up 5 points. His strikeout and walk rates are both improved, but nothing crazy. So we'll see where this takes him from. And I think this is probably going to send him gold. I hope it does, because he deserves it. It sure does. Bumps him right up to gold there, from 82 to 85. Charlie Blackmon should be a gold. He absolutely deserves it. Next up is a guy who's I think he's got like 15 upgrades in a row, but he probably deserves yet another one. And I think that we're talking about Wilson Ramos right now. I don't know who you guys, I can't even see who you guys are talking about. Twitch. I guess I already have him blocked. That's how much of a loser that guy is. Where are the mods? Like, I have mods for a reason. Do your job, guys. I can't even see what he's saying, so I already have whoever this loser is blocked. But let's talk Wilson Ramos. Let's get back on track. He was last upgraded a couple weeks ago, June 24th. He's hitting 359, 458, 538 since then. Absurd. He's been having a great season this year. Let's talk about his contact versus righties, up 8 to 81. His power versus righties up to 73. Because he has a 352, 408, 554 with 9 homers, a 15% strikeout rate, and 202 isolated power, which is slugging minus batting average. And it gets power. It gets to kind of the power that they're doing. Guys are killing me. All right, next up is his lefty work. 76 here and 78 on the power. Real big upgrades need to come versus lefties right now because of the season that he's having. 276 at batting average doesn't jump off the page, but he only has a 6% strikeout rate. So he's making a lot of really good contact. He has a 231 batting average on balls in play, which is really low and suggests that he's been unlucky against lefties. He does have 4 homers and a 276 ISO to go with everything else there. So I think he needs big upgrades there. And he's kind of becoming maybe the best catcher out there. I know that Buster Posey is still great, has great stats himself. I personally don't hit well with Buster Posey, and if we see another big upgrade from Wilson Ramos, I think I'm going to have to give him a nice long look in the lineup. Let's see where this takes Wilson Ramos. Boom, up to gold, which I think he richly deserves the way he's been hitting. And he has some track record of quality work too. I think there's been times where he's been injured, and that's kind of the tough part with catchers. Catchers absolutely are susceptible to injuries more often, being behind the dish. And we've seen spurts of Wilson Ramos being really good and then kind of falling off. I don't think that that's necessarily his skills completely falling off. I really do think it's a health situation. Wait a minute. Am I using the right roster, guys? Is this the right roster? Yeah, okay, Bogaerts is a diamond. Just making sure. Just making sure. You guys threw me off there with having to ban somebody in the middle of the stream. All right, let's talk Jake Lamb. I know this will make Marcos Mendoza very happy. Another guy, probably even more so than Ramos, who's been upgraded like 38 times. And again, deservedly so. He was last upgraded on June 24th. And since then, he's hitting 378, 415, 973. That's so stupid. Like, he's so good, it's unbelievable. That said, all I can really upgrade right now for him is his power against righties. But it deserves a sharp upgrade, all the way up to 90. I mean, he's got a 665 slug against them, a 348 ISO. It's second to only Poppy, and he's been great. Now, even in this little stretch since 624, he's been pretty good against lefties, but for the whole year, he's been pretty bad against them, so I can't really upgrade that. And he is still striking out a lot, so I can't really upgrade his contact. 85 is pretty good. If you're talking about 85, 90, all of a sudden, this is pretty close to, you know, Carlos Gonzalez against righties, who we always love, and you can put him at third base. He's not a great fielder, but you can get away with it, I think. At the very least, you could put him in left field, kind of hide him out there, maybe play in some parks that have a little bit easier left field, maybe playing Fenway, playing Minute Maid, and it's not as challenging of a left field out there if you're going to use kind of a lower defensive guy. It's going to move from 81 to 84. Oh, so close. So close. I don't know. I've mentioned this before in the past, and I don't even know if they do this, but if it's a situation where they think he deserves gold, and I think you can easily make that case because of how good he's been, I think we could see a situation where maybe they bump things up just a little, kind of play with the numbers, tweak them a little bit, maybe even in categories that we're not necessarily focused on, just to kind of get him to gold. But he's right on the cusp either way. Staying out west in this same division, let's talk about Yangervis Solarte, one of the few good players on this Padres team. They only got one All-Star this year, Will Myers. And Solarte might have made a case, except that he missed a bunch of time, and I think he got off to a slow start. So those two factors did make it tough. Makes it tough to kind of put him in there. But he has been great. I do think he deserves an upgrade, and it's going to come mostly against lefties. Well, actually, all against lefties. Up to 75 for his contact, and up to 59 for his power. He's got a 1082 OPS against lefties. That's a career best, but it's only 46 plate appearances, so we have to kind of be careful on that. His plate discipline can go up as well, though. He's got a career best 11% strikeout rate, 11% walk rate, because that discipline's for walk rate. His strikeout rate's actually a little bit worse this year, but not so much so that they need to mess with his vision. I think his vision can stay right where it's at, and that's what makes him good. By the way, we're just talking about catchers, and I mentioned Buster Posey. He just hit a home run, so he's like not so fast with anointing Wilson Ramos as the best catcher. He hit that home run just to tell me what's up. All right. So, yeah, we got him up 2 points there from 81 to 83. Nothing crazy, but I tell you what, this card plays a lot better than an 81 or an 83 might suggest. The defense is suspect. I will freely grant that. But look at where he can play. Everywhere in the infield and both corner outfield spots. That 90 vision makes up for a lot. I don't know about y'all, but I absolutely rake with Solarte. So he's been a guy that I have a hard time taking out of my lineup, and I always draft in Battle Royale. Next up, we go out to Detroit, talk about Victor Martinez, this guy who has deserved an upgrade for quite a while. I'm really not sure what's going on and where we're at with this, but it's got to be coming, right? We've got to get the contact versus righties back up to 85. He's hitting 318 against them with a 15% strikeout rate. The power versus righties needs the biggest gain. I get that up to 69. He's got 11 homers against them with a 205 ISO, and power versus lefties getting a big upgrade as well, up to 74. 5 home runs with a 217 ISO. Victor Martinez is back to raking. He's not quite at the 2014 level, which was just obscene. I mean, unbelievable season that he had. He's not quite there yet, but he's working his way back up there, and he's definitely a heck of a lot better than he was last year. I think he's deserving of an upgrade. Let's see where that moves Victor from 80 to 86. Wow, that would get him all. That'd get him up to gold, of course. I don't know if they can give him a full 6-point upgrade, but I think he deserves it. I think you look at the numbers, I have a hard time saying he doesn't deserve it. Obviously, you can put him at catcher, but you're putting yourself at a lot of risk. He's got a 52 fielding at first base, let alone what he might have at catcher, because obviously they don't list it. But I'm sure his blocking is terrible. We have enough passed balls and wild pitches with guys who have 90+ blocking. I don't even want to know what it'd be like with Victor. But that bat is so good that you might even be able to finagle him into first, especially if you play more of a contact-based game as opposed to power. I know those power numbers don't really stand up to the best first baseman, but I do love those contact numbers and that vision. Victor's just a beast. All right, next up is another old guy who's just kind of having a solid little kick here. Nothing crazy for Coco Crisp, but I do think he deserves an upgrade. And I just went with some flat numbers. I didn't get too deep into it. Just kind of looked, saw that he was having a good season. I think he deserves +7s against lefties, so 51 and 57, because he has a 710 OPS, which is his best since 2010, and then +5s against righties, 58 and 69, because he has a 736 OPS against them. That's his best since 2013. That moves him up to an 82. He's still staying silver. Pretty solid, though. Coco Crisp, I mean, he has skills. It's never really been about skills. It's always been about health with him. Next up is a guy who we were asking for an upgrade a long time ago. I shouldn't say that. I mean, it was a couple weeks, though. I was way in on an upgrade for Danny Espinosa, and all he did was get more on fire. He's been amazing lately, just crushing the ball. He has 10 homers in his last 26 games. Let's get our Danny Espinosa upgrade going. I got to get 63 for the contact versus lefties, but up to 80 in the power versus lefties. That's right, 80. That is a sharp upgrade. I completely understand that. But he has a 385 ISO against them with 7 home runs in 71 plate appearances. He's hitting a home run every 10 plate appearances against lefties. So I think he does require a really sharp upgrade. Power against against righties, I can't quite go as crazy, but I still have a pretty sharp upgrade up to 67. He had a 157 ISO the last time we checked in on him. Now he's up at 186 with 11 home runs. So no contact upgrade there, because he still does strike out. He's not a huge contact guy, but with that kind of power that you can put in the middle infield, it's worth it. And if you're a bunt cheeser, more power to you. He actually has good bunting ability, so there's that as well. And passable fielding. It's not great. You will see some unspectacular plays from him, but you can use that. I don't think that's something that, oh my God, I could never use that, especially in BR. It's going up from a 75 to a 79. So we'll definitely get him into silver, and if he if he continues to rake, there's a small chance that he would move up to gold, maybe a month or so down the line. Next up is CJ Cron. Crone? Creen? I don't know. CJ Cron. Whatever the hell. All right, he's been raking of late as well. Let's get his contact versus righties up to 70. He's got a 295 average and a 15% strikeout rate against righties. That's huge. That's great. Anything under 20 is pretty strong. So I really like what he's been able to do this year. And he is a righty, so going righty versus righty is really impressive there. Contact versus lefties, up to 68. 14% strikeout rate against them. Power versus lefties, that's moving up to 71. He's got a 196 ISO against them. That's up 70 points from last year. So that's a pretty sharp upgrade. And I think his plate vision needs to go up a little bit because those strikeout rates that we're talking about are a really sharp increase from what he did last year. Last year he had a 20% strikeout rate, which is all right. But this year he's at 15%, which is really good, especially for a power hitter. If you are in the teens as kind of a power first batter, that's really impressive. So I think we can get a plate vision upgrade for CJ Cron. And that moves him up from 74 to 78, right up into silver. All right, next up, Cubs fans. What you know about this guy? He's out of his mind right now. First off, this dude loves himself. You watch Wilson Contreras play at all, dude is really psyched about being in the majors and really psyched about the way he looks. He thinks he's the hottest dude going. Takes off his helmet every 2 minutes to show everybody how he looks and how cool he is. But listen, when you are beasting the way he is, I understand. He's been amazing. He's been absolutely amazing. I think he's got to move up 12 points here in contact versus righties up to a 69. 7 points against lefties up to a 70. I think that plate discipline needs a sharp upgrade. 20 points up to 53. Here's what he's got going right now. He's got a 1032 OPS against righties, 963 OPS against lefties, 359 ISO against righties, and a 238 against lefties. Did I not move the power up against? I'm a dummy. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it was supposed to be 12 points for each category. So that goes up to 56, and then 7 points for each left category. That goes up to 59. So, you know, the numbers that he has right now are excellent and probably more deserving if they were over a longer sample. We have to consider the fact that he's been up for 2 minutes. And while we have seen San Diego Studios move guys up pretty quickly when they have pedigree and they're dominating, Michael Fulmer comes to mind, I think this is a pretty good upgrade for somebody who's been in the league for 5 minutes as a catcher. Would be up to an 80 already. That would be really nice to put at catcher. And then you can also stick him in left field if you want to go Joe Madden and start moving guys around. I really like this upgrade. That's a 6-point boost. I think either way, maybe he might not go as high as I've gotten him here, but I think he gets the 4 points. I think Wilson Contreras ends up as a silver either way. Next up is Marcus Semien. Couldn't field his way out of a wet paper bag, which I don't really understand what that phrase means, but it gets used a lot. Something out of a wet paper bag, but he could hit his way out of it, I think, especially if a lefty was in the paper bag with him. He's absolutely mangling lefties to death, and I think he deserves a big power upgrade up to 76 and a big contact upgrade up to 86 because he has a 648 slug against lefties. That's ridiculous with 8 homers, and his batting average is 296 with a 15% strikeout rate. Consider that he strikes out 25% of the time against righties. So, I mean, he is just a completely different player when he goes up against lefties. And that's it. I can't get him an upgrade against righties, but that upgrade against lefties is enough to push him maybe into silver. I doubt it. Yeah, not quite. Actually, it's only a 1-point upgrade. But that's the thing. That's another reason that you don't get too hung up on overalls, because if you look, 86-76 against lefties, that's useful. Probably not at shortstop with that disgustingly bad fielding, but you can put him at second base and kind of hide him there. A lot of teams in real life, they will hide defensive liabilities at second base. That's where Daniel Murphy plays. So, you know, it's a risk because 48 is really freaking bad, but 86-76. Maybe it's a BR situation where you bat him leadoff against lefties, get him that first at bat, maybe play him for the first inning, and then take him out so that you don't have a third inning error or something like that. Not everybody has to be, you know, the perfect guy that you can use in Diamond Dynasty all the time. Everybody has kind of different uses. I think that somebody like a Marcus Semien shows some versus lefties capability in Battle Royale. By the way, in case you haven't figured out, we go in order of overall. So these next few guys and the ones that we've done in the past here, these are the lower rated guys. So if you're not interested in kind of the lower guys working their way up, the back end of this hitters video is not going to be your favorite part. But it's important because these are the guys that are kind of working their way up into the next silvers, into the next golds, and they're the ones that can be cheaper investments that can pay off bigger in the end. Another rookie here, we got Tim Anderson, who's come up and just hit been on fire since coming up. I can't go too crazy because, again, his sample's very small. He did not show a lot of power in the minors, but he's absolutely dominating so far, so I do got to give him some love. Got to move this power all the way up to 47 against righties and up to 40 against lefties. I know that's not that great, but again, that's what we have to do. And I think contact versus lefties goes up to 62. It stays put against righties. It's got a 3 homers and a 198 ISO against righties. 3 homers. I don't know if he hit 3 homers in a single minor league season. So to already have 3 homers against righties is pretty impressive. His numbers against lefties are where he's been really good so far. 353, 389, 588 with 1 homer, but just 19 plate appearances. So it's a really small sample, but I did want to give Tim Anderson some love just to see where he's at. And the main reason he stuck out to me is because he is somebody that I have used in Battle Royale just as a very late bench pick, kind of a speed guy who can play passable defense. This is not winning you any games, but he's working his way up. He is a prospect with a lot of pedigree, and if he continues to hit over the summer, now all of a sudden he's 2 points away from a silver, and then he becomes a lot more useful at that point. And that was a 3-point upgrade, by the way, from 73 to 76. Another rookie coming up. This guy, talking about a guy who never had power before that all of a sudden is just beasting out like he's freaking Chris Davis or something. I've made this joke on my podcast before, but I don't know if Tyler Naquin rummaged through the lockers of Abraham Almonte and Marlon Byrd when they got suspended for PEDs, but oh my God, he's out of his mind, especially with this power. Never known as a power guy before, whether in college or in the minors. He was last upgraded on June 17th, but since then he's done nothing to dissuade another upgrade with a 350 average, a 447 on base, and a 750 slug, with 9 extra base hits, and 2 of those have been homers. So I'm going to get his power versus righties up to 63 because he has a 561. This says 561 OPS. I mean 561 slug. It has to be because 561 OPS is absolutely terrible. So 561 slugging with 6 homers and 4 triples. Now some of those triples are just the fact that he's a speedy guy, but you also have to hit the ball with a lot of thump on a lot of triples. It's not. Sometimes they can rattle around. They can almost be errors that aren't called as errors. But I've kind of seen what he's been able to do, and I was really impressed as he and his Cleveland Indians obliterated my Tigers in a set outside of Thursday's game, outside of Wednesday's game today. But otherwise, the Indians have just been crushing, and Tyler Naquin's been a big part of it. And he's made them not really miss Michael Brantley being gone. Now, I've done this before where we get into an upgrade situation, and we actually might end up being a downgrade because I have to bump down his contact versus righties. He has a 33% strikeout rate against them. He does have a big batting average, but it's powered by a 458 batting average on balls in play, and that is insane, and that's just not going to hold up. So I had to bring that down a little bit, but the power does go up, and he only has 21 plate appearances against lefties, so I didn't touch it. I just kind of left this as is. We'll see what it does. He goes from a 73. He might just stay put or maybe tick up 1. Let's see. He stays put. He's even. I think that's fair, though. I think that's what it needs to be because he's just having a weird line right now. It's very interesting. It's someone I'm kind of keeping a close eye on, but right now I don't think we can go too crazy with anything, but we do have to give him a little bit of a power upgrade. 2 more hitters here. One guy out in Miami. This Miami offense has been really impressive this year. You know, I didn't quite do a full investigation on Christian Yelich. I probably should have because I feel like he probably deserves an upgrade. I know I upgraded him a couple weeks back, maybe over a month at this point. I should go circle back around because I didn't get a chance to look at him today. But Derek Dietrich is somebody that I did put down for an upgrade, and he's all the way down at 71, and I'm kind of surprised he's still all the way down there because he deserves an upgrade. I think he needs to come with a 62 contact versus righties. He's got a 320 average with a 17% strikeout rate and 64 for the power. His vision needs to go up to 60, and his contact versus lefties can go up to 50. Now, he's only hitting 240 with a 23% strikeout rate against lefties, and neither of those numbers really jumps off the page. But I've mentioned this in previous videos. Lefty versus lefty is really difficult, so you have kind of a lower threshold to be considered solid. And consider that last year he had a 178 average and 39% strikeout rate. So he's made major improvements, and I think they could show that by getting him up to a 50 contact versus lefties. Let's see what this does for Dietrich. 73. So he's still kind of working his way up. But one thing I will say about Dietrich that I really like is he regularly gets inside edge updates. And when he gets them, they're like 12 points across the board. And all of a sudden he becomes very useful, especially with 3 positions. I know his defense is not great, especially with that bad reaction. But again, second base, this is another real life example of what I'm talking about. A modest defensive guy that they kind of hide at second base. And he's been great for them in the absence of D. Gordon. And then the last one is a common. We'll see how high we can get Peter Burgos up to. You guys remember Peter Burgos when he was like good? It was a long time ago, and it was looking like he was going to become something, and then he just fell off. Well, he's back on track. He's having a hell of a season for sure. Still just 29 years old. Not too crazy to see him kind of exploding. This is his second best year in terms of OPS versus righties and lefties. I gave him +5s against lefties, because he has a 447 batting average on balls in play, so I think it's a little bit skewed in terms of what he's been doing. But I did +6 contact versus righties, up to 63, but a +14 power versus righties, because he has 4 homers in 175 plate appearances against righties this year. He had 5 in 485 plate appearances from 2013 to 2015. So he's having an insane power year against righties. Don't want to overreact and like bump him up to 70 or something like that, but a 14-point upgrade up to 50, all of a sudden it's a little bit more useful. This takes him from a 68 up to, there he is, 73. So he gets in bronze, and you got really good fielding. The arm is kind of crappy, especially with the arm accuracy, but 90 fielding, 90 reaction. His speed should be higher. I'm actually kind of surprised it's down at a 67. I don't feel like his speed is necessarily degraded that much. I probably should have looked more at that. I feel like that could probably be upgraded as well, but he's not going to get up to silver anytime soon anyway, so I think we can kind of leave it and just go with this right now. So those are the hitting upgrades for this week. Again, I know there are other guys that are deserving. I take a lot of time diving into these guys, and I can't do everybody, because I think for hitting, especially this week, there was a lot of guys that were capable of being upgraded, and there were others that look like they are, but then when you dig in, there's no real spot to upgrade them. So keep that in mind too when you're asking about guys who should be upgraded. I'll review these very quickly. We'll take a break and then get into pitchers. So first I had Joey Votto going 90 to 94 back into Diamond. Yoenis Cespedes 89 to 90 with a big upgrade against lefties. Francisco Lindor 87 to 89. Nelson Cruz 87 to 88. Troy Tulowitzki 86 to 89. Charlie Blackmon 82 to 85. Wilson Ramos 82 to 85 as well. Both of them are new golds. Jake Lamb from 81 to 84. Really think he could get 85, but the upgrades, I don't do these ahead of time and try to focus on the overall. I just do the upgrades, and I see the overall for the first time with you guys. Yangervis Solarte from 81 to 83. Victor Martinez 80 to 86. Coco Crisp 78 to 82. Danny Espinosa 75 to 79. CJ Cron 74 to 78. Wilson Contreras 74 to 80. Marcus Semien 74 to 75. Tim Anderson 73 to 76. Tyler Naquin holding firm at a 73, but with an upgrade against righties. Derek Dietrich with a 71 to 73, and Peter Burgos with a 68 to 73. Those are our hitting upgrades for the roster update coming out on July 8th. All right, guys, I'm going to take a little breather here before we